Thank you. Good. Thank you very much.
If you've ever seen me do my leadership development, I have a slide of that equation and a picture of Glenn in it. So Glenn, I don't know if I told you that.
You haven't told me that, no.
No? So remember when I asked you for your photos?
Yes.
I've had the photos that you gave to me, and I say, when I think of somebody of a man of action, that is who I think of. And I put him into my slides, and I tell his story. And I tell that story, and I tell it a little differently. I said, there it was, so it was the second year, I go up to visit him, and we're in Buffalo. And here he is, professional football player, you know, like, as a guy, like, I'm hanging out with a professional football player. It's like, oh, I'm an engineer and a nerd, and I'm hanging with this guy. And he's literally, what was the name of the grocery store?
Oh, hi, something or other, I don't know.
I always call it Piggly Wiggly. I call it Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah, Piggly Wiggly.
That's what you call that.
And I say he's sitting between the Funyuns and the Coke on a folding table doing a show, a radio show. And I think to myself, this isn't very glamorous. Why is he doing this? Why? Because he made a decision and he took action. And he did what most people do that are successful. It's validated learning. Sometimes you get a result, you get that R and you go, you know what, that is not the result I want. I think I need to take a different action. So that is, for me, one of the key pieces and one of the key things that I teach in my leadership development. I think there's 3 core pieces to being successful. Decision, what do you want? What is it that you want? Take action, and you're going to get some kind of result. And if you don't like the result, what should you do?
Redecide.
You can keep the same decision, take a different action.
Yeah.
Change the action, and you'll get a different result. That's what you have control over. The last thing that I talk about when I talk about leadership development is taking 100% responsibility. See, that result you get, if you like it, do more of that. Do more of that action if you like that result. If you don't like it, say, hey, I can take responsibility for this result, and I can get a different result. What do most people do? Take an action to get a result, they go, no, I don't like it. No. And they give up. I think what you learn from Glenn here is that he just didn't give up. He adopted an attitude, he had an intention of saying, I'm going to learn. And that's what I actually wanted to talk to you about tonight. It's about being intentional. My first week, on my first job in medical device, I got into an email exchange. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Get that email exchange, like, it keeps going up, and people are like, I got my first week, on my first job in medical device, I got into one of those emails exchanges. And the last email that was sent, the person who I got into this kerfuffle with, I like that word kerfuffle, by the way, kerfuffle, that's a good word, it's a good word. Who I got into this kerfuffle with, she CC'd my boss, my boss's boss, and the head of our department. Now look on her face, like, that is the look I had, like, I look at me like, ah! How did I get here? It was a simple, like, started simply. It didn't, how am I here? So what I did is I printed out the email, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to go talk to the head of the department. I don't want to go through the room. I'm just going to say, what should I do here? I'm new. What should I do? It's my first week! First week on the job, I'm like, ah! And I walked into her office, and I gave her this thing. I said, I'd like some advice. And she took the email. She looked at it for about a second. She looks up at me. Did you talk to her? No? You might want to try that. She hands me back my memo that I printed out. I take it, I walk back to my cubicle, crumple up and I walk the 15 feet to the person that I was having this email exchange. 15 feet, there were 3 cubicles away from me. 3 cubicles, I'm gonna give it 15 feet is roughly from here to maybe twice the end of the stage. That's how far I had to walk. 15 feet, 3 cubicles. How much time did I spend crafting my emails to try to get the exchange just right? 15 feet. Now, I would like to say that when I spoke to her, she was like, Chris, so good to see you. But it wasn't quite that way. It takes a little bit of courage to talk to someone, especially when you know that there's a problem. So I sat down and it first started off a little gruff. You know? And I said, I really want to know. I set my intention. You know what Glenn said? He said it's made his decision. The decision I made was I wanted to figure out what was the miscommunication. So before, and that long 15-foot walk, I said, I want to make sure that I'm not accusatory, that I'm setting my intention to understand what's going on. And so she spoke to me, and I spoke back to her. She spoke to me. You know what it came down to? Anyone want to guess? Miscommunication. Right?
I should have said it.
You should have just said it.
I started.
There's like, 11 of us here, so it's all good. We're friends now. We're going to have a reunion. We're going to have a barbecue at my house, and it's just not a reunion. It was a miscommunication. What had happened was, my first day there, I asked one of the people on her team for some help. What I didn't know is she wanted you to ask her because she was very protective of her team and her team's time. And she wanted me to ask her, and then her to say, hey, yes, Chris is available to do this. That's all it was. 5 minutes. I got down to that. I had bumped up against one of her boundaries, right, without knowing it. Once I figured that out, I said, I can live with that. If I need some help, I'll go to you first and say, hey, I'd like to have Chris or Bob's help on this. Do you think they have some availability to help me? Perfectly fine after that. So what's the lesson here? 1, be intentional. Before you go talk to someone, decide what it is that's important to you that you're trying to get out of this. Look what Glenn said about, look, pretend you don't know anything. Explain to me what's going on. What? You seem to be upset. Can I understand that? Come to that from that kind of standpoint is very powerful. So be intentional when you do that. I'm going to add one other thing here, and Glenn spoke about it too, is be gracious. Be gracious. It's okay for people to have a different point of view. It's okay. And the last thing I would like you to take away from this little story is don't send the 3rd email. When it goes, well, I'm going to have to respond to that. Don't do it. Go and talk to the person if you can. If you can't physically walk the 15 feet to see them, pick up the phone and talk to them. You'll get so used to sending things to people and it gets kind of, it's snarky. Now I was working with a client, and this is so relevant. I had worked with a client doing leadership development, and they were having some difficulties or some challenges with the leadership. And you know how I knew they were having difficulties? Because she shared a story about an email exchange. And it didn't go to 3, it went to 1, you're an a-hole off the first email, and then the response, well, why are you being so emotional? I will tell you this one thing. If I will diagnose for you if you're having some leadership challenges in your company. If people are calling each other names, you've got a leadership challenge in your company. If you're resorting to name calling, there is a disconnect. Would you agree with that? Never. It's all good. Hey, look, I grew up in New Jersey, and like calling people names was just part of the culture. But in business, it is extraordinarily toxic to be calling people names. Right? So what did I suggest to them? I suggested them to be intentional. And one of the things that I recommended was before the meetings, and this is a startup company, and I think you were telling me, Drew, that you're thinking, you have a startup company, right? Your own business that you started with, right?
Yeah, franchise.
Franchise.
I have a few ideas for startups.
Startups challenge, because there's always things going on. It's all moving quickly, right? I'm sure Dave, you can agree with it, right? Things are moving, you're trying to grow your business, it's just
They're
crazy.
perfect all the time.
Perfect! He's the exception, the anomaly. What I suggested to them was, before you go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, to take 1 minute to set your intention before you go into the next meeting. Don't go into the meeting with all the junk that came in from the other meeting and all the stress that you have. That take 1 minute. It's like, I don't have time. And I said, that's exactly why you should take it. Because you should take that moment and stop and go, okay, who am I here to serve? How best can I take care of this? How do I want to show up in this meeting? These are really important things to do if you want to be successful. Whether you're starting your own company, whether you're with a large company, whether you're working with your kids. I believe that was my wife giggling at me. Be intentional. How do you want to show up? So when I do my leadership development, I talk about those 3 things. Decide what you want. Who do you want to be? As a leader, I talk about how do you want to show up? You know, one of the first things I have people do when I work with them? I have them write their own definition of leadership. Because everybody's different. And you can read these things. Oh, isn't this a great, oh, look at that. That is a great quote on what leadership is. You know what my follow-up question is? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself on your own definition of leadership? 6? Maybe there's an improvement opportunity. Intention. Deciding what you want. If this is what you decide is what a leader should be, then what are you doing to make that happen? What actions are you taking? Are you taking responsibility for being successful as a leader? Now, I often get some people to say to me, well, you know, some people are just born leaders. Right? So how many people believe that people are born leaders and that, or that you can create a leader? How many people believe that you are born leaders, just born leaders? You say born leader? He's like, meh. How many people say that you can become a leader?
Can I say both?
You say both? Yes. So here you go. This is just my humble opinion. Every single one of you is a leader. At the very least, you're leading your own life. Now, you may not be doing a great job of it, but you're leading your own life. If you have kids, if you're married, you're leading your family. I ask you, what is your definition of being a good leader in that situation? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself? Anything less than a 10, what actions are you going to take to get you to a 10? That's simple. Set your intention. Now I'm going to give you an intention that I'd like you to consider. And it is what I call the cornerstone of being successful, of being a great leader. It's mastering the art of appreciation. I just recently was at the Toastmasters Leadership Conference, and they had a leadership speaker there. And she said, there are two things people want more than sex and money. I'm like, not at work, right? We're not gonna do sex at work, probably not a good thing to get. And that is praise and acknowledgement. That's what they want. People want praise and recognition, PR, praise and recognition. I call that appreciation. That is the cornerstone of being successful, is appreciating the people who you're working with, appreciating the opportunities that you have, is key. And I can say this with the utmost of confidence, because the first company I worked with, we had a culture of appreciation. It was that same boss who handed back to me that memo. She's the one who created it. Because she had an intention that it was about the team. That was her intention. I want it to be about the team. And the best way for you to be a good team player is going to be talking to people. You have a problem. So this is my first job in medical device. We made a cardiac stent. For those of you who don't know what a cardiac stent is, it's a little piece of metal. It's a little tiny, almost looks like smaller than the top of this button. Very, very thin mesh. It goes on a catheter that goes in through the thigh. It's the delivery system, and it goes up to where the occlusion is. The occlusion is, everybody knows what cholesterol is, right? The cholesterol closes that artery. Everybody get that? Well, this would go through the artery, go to that point where there's occlusion. A little guide wire would go in. They'd have a balloon, and they'd blow it up so the blood flow could decrease. And we put a stent there, a metal mesh little stent in that, and then the blood flow would continue. This is called an implantable device, and it's highly regulated. It should be highly regulated. It's going in your body. You know, it's not a matter of life and death. Oh, no. It is a matter of life and death. That's the device that we were making. And I was assigned to be the corporate trainer. I was the face of the implementation of a manufacturing execution system. Ooh, doesn't that sound fancy? Manufacturing execution system, thank you. Do you know what it was? When you make that device, you have to record who worked on it. Were they properly trained? What equipment they used and what materials. We call this man, material, machine. All of that has to be recorded because it's highly regulated. People have to be trained properly, have to be using the proper equipment, it has to be calibrated, has to be maintained, the proper materials have to be used. All of that's very important. And all we did was we were putting an electronic system in. So we're taking all that was put on paper. There were reams and reams and reams and reams of paper to make these devices. Well, people would make mistakes, so the system there was there to help them prevent making mistakes. For that implementation, it was called the best software implementation they'd ever had at that company, and it was a Fortune 50 company. And the reason I believe that we were so successful was because the person at the top, the managers, and everyone bought into appreciation. And it started from the very top. Every month, we had a town hall. And the first half hour would be kind of the state of the union. This is what's going on with the project, this is what's going on, here's some challenges we have, this is what's going on. The first half hour. The second half hour was all appreciation. So the first one they had, the first thing that you get was that was easy button. Do you remember those things from Staples? That was easy. So you get a that was easy button. This was the two managers, right, would give the that was easy button to people for what they did in that month. And they'd give them a gift card, a $15 gift card. The second award was a monetary award, anywhere from $100 to $1,000. But here's the beauty of it. You had to be nominated by someone else in the team. So you had to nominate, say, hey, Dustin, you did a great job. I'd like to nominate you this. You really helped me out. I'm going to nominate you for a $500 spot award. And what's nice is they paid the taxes. So you actually got the full $500. It's nice. It wasn't like, hey, I'm nominated for a $500 spot award and I got $300 and what? You got the full $500. They paid the taxes up. And there was one more award. And it was coveted above all the rest. More than the money, more than that was easy button. It was the Get Her Done Award. Get her done. So you know the comedian, right? He says, get her done.
No, Larry the Cable Guy.
Larry the Cable Guy. Get her done. And he has hats. Get her done. Get her done. So we had a hat that was encased.
It was a trucker hat.
It was a trucker hat. I'm sorry, my wife's adding things in. It was a trucker hat. And it was encased in glass. And it looks like it had been encased. The person who made this was in 8th grade and it was their first project. And it was encased in glass. And one team would get that within our team. And they would get the Get Her Done Award. And it would be proudly displayed on top of their cubicle. The Get Her Done Award. And people would go around and say, hey, I'm coming for that Get Her Done Award this month. Literally, they would be like, well, I'm coming for that this month. Ah, all right. I take that challenge. People wanted the recognition. More than the spot award. More than the $1,000. More than the gift card. They wanted the recognition. They wanted to be appreciated for the work they did. Now I'm going to tell you what I think is the genius of this. The fact that we got to nominate other people. What does that do? Every single month, I had to think, who would I like to nominate? So instead of thinking about, what a pain this person is, I'm thinking, who helped me the most? I would like to nominate that person for this award. So now your brain, instead of thinking about something to complain about, you're thinking, what can I appreciate in my other team members? That was the culture of our team. That, in my opinion, was the genius of it. So your brain actually has a filter. It's called the reticular activating system.
In English, what's that mean?
In English, what it means is what you put your attention on, your brain thinks important. So if you put your attention on, oh, you know, this sucks, this is awful, I don't like this, your brain goes, hey, that's important. Let's find other things to think that suck, not important. Look at all these things! Look at all these things I'm finding! It's amazing! The opposite is true though. If you master appreciation, then you're constantly looking around for the things you appreciate. And your brain says that's important. And I'll show you how this works. If I were to say, don't think about your left foot right now. So the person you're laughing, can you tell me why are you laughing?
Because I just thought of my left.
Because as soon as I said left foot, I drew attention to, and your brain goes, what is going on with my left foot? It's in my shoe. I'm actually kind of itchy. It's kind of hot in here. Can I do this? What do you say?
I would say it's not the left foot, it's don't think about.
Oh, it's even more powerful. So good point. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, it's just you're saying don't think about something, and that's exactly what we're going to do about.
So here's the thing. Your brain doesn't register the word don't.
We like to rebel.
No. What it is, and this is what happens, your brain registers what you put your attention on. If I say, don't think about your left foot, I still put the attention on your left foot. It doesn't register the word don't. I use this with my kids. Don't forget to look both ways when you cross the street. Forget to look both ways when I'm crossing the street. All right. Remember to look both ways when you're crossing the street. Different. How you phrase things is important. Now, I can say with high confidence that this was the case, that appreciation is really the cornerstone, because our head of our department moved on. And we got a new boss. And his idea was, we are too busy to have a town hall. This isn't worth the time. Well, what started happening is we started missing our timelines. People were starting to get stressed out because it wasn't important anymore. Then he brought in another boss who was like him, and it got even worse. So the leader goes, so the team goes. And here's the thing. At any level, you can be the leader. Glenn didn't share this, he probably didn't have time, but I'll have you interject here. When he was, and Glenn, just correct me if I've got the story wrong, okay, for me. But when he was brought to the New York Giants, he wasn't supposed to start. Is that right?
Yeah, they wanted me for other reasons, they said.
They said for other reasons. My understanding was because of his leadership. They brought him on for that. So did you start that first year, Glenn?
Yeah.
You did. At any level. So here's someone they brought on board who's not the star, not the quarterback, not where all the attention is, but he's the leader. At any level you can be a leader. You can set the example for people. Just because a person's got the title doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best leader. Yeah. Appreciation is also scalable. It works with your family, works with your friends, it works in your work, works in large corporations and small. I'll give you a different story. I was asked to speak at a conference. It's a week-long conference, and I was one of the speakers. I was also helping train some trainers. And I walked into the buffet line that they had provided at lunch, and there was really nothing I liked to eat in it. And I'm like, what am I going to have? I like to eat my vegetables. I like to eat really cleanly when I'm speaking. Glenn was talking about taking care of yourself. And so I was like, what am I going to do? And I said, you know what? I'm going to ask one of the waiters. So I looked at this waiter and I said, excuse me, would you do me a favor? Could you maybe steam up some vegetables for me? I don't know if that's available, but I'd really like to do that because it's important for me to eat healthy while I'm here. And he said, sure. And I said, okay, great, thank you. When I go to sit down, I started talking. They were all talking, and he brought me my steamed vegetable. And I remember I quickly said, oh, thank you. But I didn't really look at him. I didn't make eye contact because I was getting busy with the table. Right? And after I finished, I said, I should have done a better job there. So I got up and I walked over to him. And I said, hey, I just want to let you know that I really appreciate you, bringing that food to me. It's important to me. And I just want to say thank you for that. And I happened to notice that he had on his shirt a breast cancer thing. Right? And I said, do you have someone who's suffering through cancer? And he said, yes. And I said, my mom went through that. She had lung cancer. So I really feel for you as you're going through this. And I said to him, I was looking at him, and I said, I'm going to put you in my thoughts and my prayers tonight. And I will tell you right then that he went to me and he's like, really? I'm like, yes, really? Like, look, we're both human beings, and I understand what you're going through. Of course I will. That moment, he lit up. And another intention, what I'd like you to take away from this, is take that moment to look at people, to connect with them. Because everybody deserves that. I'm going through the line at the grocery store, and you're like, hey, okay, my name is money. Look the person in the eye, say hello.